The desert wind tasted like dust and regret clinging to Jedediah Stone's throat as he stared at the flower bed. A single crimson ruby, nestled amongst the wilting blooms, pulsed with an unnatural vibrancy under the harsh Arizona sun. Thorne's confession still echoed in his ears, a tangled web of shared shame and suppressed fear, yet something remained stubbornly out of reach. He broke. "Marshal," Clem's voice was low, respectful, clean as a whistle. "Pay the drifter. Pull paid him to deliver a message, that's all." Jed grunted, his gaze fixed on the ruby. A message that ended with a bullet in Silas Blackwood's back. The drifter, the man in the hat, a ghost in the desert, hired to do a dirty job and disappearing back into the scrub before anyone could even catch a scent. Thorne had given a name, a description vague, deliberately so, but it was like chasing a phantom. "He said he didn't know who the drifter was, just paid him through a fence," Clem continued, his youthful face etched with the grimness of a man already acquainted with the darker side of redemption. Sir Blackwood was threatening to expose something about the father's business. Thorne's estate was a stark contrast to the dusty, hardscribble existence of most Redemption's residents. A sprawling ranch house, manicured lawns, flower beds bursting with colour, a carefully constructed facade of respectability. It felt wrong somehow that such beauty could be born from such ugliness. Ilara's absence weighed on Jed. He hadn't visited her since Thorne's arrest. The sight of her, pale and struggling to regain a use of her arm, felt like another layer of guilt he couldn't bear to confront. He's been a constant fixture at her side in the past, a support she leaned on, but he felt he's abandoned her. The case consumed him, pulled him away from the solace of her presence. "Find anything in Blackwood's office, Clem?" Clem shook his head, cleaned out. "Mostly correspondence. Mostly import manifests." "New Orleans, wasn't it?" Jed prompted. "He's already seen the manifests. Goods listed under innocuous titles, textiles, hardware, farm implements, but he suspected something more. Something illicit. Aye, lots of it. Seems Sears had a lucrative side business," Clem said, kicking at a loose pebble on the veranda. Jed's gut twisted. "Find anything about the ruby, Clem?" Clem frowned. "Just like you, Marshal. Nothing. Seems like a peculiar calling card, don't it?" The scent of sandalwood hung heavy in the air, a lingering ghost of the man who's pulled the trigger. It wasn't the smell of cheap cologne, but a rich, exotic fragrance, something out of place in the dry, dusty landscape. Jed's feeling of unease deepened. Thorne wasn't the mastermind. He was a pawn, a frightened, desperate pawn. "Send a rider to Tucson," Jed instructed. "Tell Sheriff Calhoun I need his best tracker, and tell him to bring the specialist in New Orleans trade routes." Clem nodded, already turning to relay the orders. "You think he goes deeper than just a family feud, Marshal?" Jed didn't answer. He just stared at the ruby, its crimson glow mirroring the fire of his determination. Silas Blackwood's death was more than a personal vendetta. It was a thread dangling from a much larger, darker tapestry. Days turned into a slow, agonizing crawl. The tracker arrived from Tucson, a grizzled man named Reyes, whose eyes held the wisdom of the desert. He followed the scent of sandalwood for miles, but it faded quickly, swallowed by the vastness of the landscape. The specialist from New Orleans arrived even later, a wiry man named Dubois, whose knowledge of the city's underbelly was unsettlingly thorough. Dubois' investigation unearthed a complex network of smugglers and brokers, all linked to Silas Blackwood's import business. Goods weren't just entering the territory, they were being diverted, disappearing into the shadows. And at the heart of it all, Dubois discovered, was a man known only as the Serpent. "The Serpent," Dubois explained, spreading a detailed map of New Orleans on Jed's desk. "He's a ghost. Nobody knows his real name, his real face. Just rumors, whispers in the dark." "What does he smuggle?" Jed asked, his voice tight. "Everything," Dubois replied, his eyes shadowed with a knowing weariness. "Opium, weapons, women, anything that can fetch a high price in the shadows." The Serpent, the man pulling the strings. Silas Blackwood had been his conduit, his link to the Arizona territory, and someone, somewhere, wanted Silas gone. Suddenly, a rider burst into the office, his face pale with urgency. "Marshal, he found him, the drifter, near the border." Jed's pulse quickened. He grabbed his hat and strode out of the office, his mind racing. The drifter, the man in the hat. Finally, the lead. He found the drifter huddled near a dry creek bed, shivering in the desert chill. He was what Jed expected. Young, barely more than a boy, with haunted eyes and a desperate fear clinging to him like a shroud. "Who sent you?" Jed demanded, his voice hard. The boy didn't answer, just stared at the ground. "The man in the hat," Jed pressed. "Who paid you?" The boy flinched, his lips trembling. I don't know. He gave me a letter, said deliver it to Silas Blackwood." didn't say nothing else. Jed seized the letter. The handwriting was elegant, unfamiliar. He recognized the crest embossed on the stationery, the Thorne's crest, but the signature was forged. A meticulous, almost perfect forgery. As Jed looked over the letter again, something else caught his eye. A faint scent clinging to the paper. Something familiar and unsettling. The scent of sandalwood, stronger this time, almost suffocating. He looked up, his gaze sweeping across the desolate landscape, and then he saw it, a single figure silhouetted against the setting sun, standing on a distant ridge, a man in a dark hat, watching, waiting, and in his hand he saw something glint in the fading light, the flash of a single, crimson ruby. The man smiled, then vanished into the shadows.